Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Drobo Broadcast Network. My name is Mario Blandini at Drobo, and today we're talking about protection for all stages of your workflow. You're probably a creative person if you're listening to this broadcast, and rather than have to create all that data protection stuff yourself, there's some good approaches to getting business-grade data protection for media creators and SMBs. And joining us is special guest Derek Brown, who is Sales and Marketing Manager here in the U.S. for Arcuware. How are you doing today, Derek?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mario.
Hey, I appreciate you joining me because people have a lot of things to do. Certainly, creating a backup strategy or a data protection strategy really isn't on the tops of people's lists. They're probably more interested in creating and producing more media. So choosing the right combination of hardware and software can be confusing. I'm happy that you're here to help us walk through a little bit of that, Derek. And we're going to discuss in this episode the right kind of data protection and backup for different types of data, along with some tips on doing different types of backup and archiving. So with that, I know that your company, Arcuware, is based in Munich, Germany, but you're here in the U.S. Arcuware produces award-winning software, Prestore specifically. It'll be used in a lot of the examples in today's broadcast. And while anybody could use it, it tends to be popular amongst designers, video folks, broadcasting, and other sorts of things. So why don't you give us a real quick background on yourself and a little bit more detail on Arcuware?
Sure. Yeah. I handle sales and marketing here in the U.S., as you mentioned. And my background is I've been with the company for a long time. And before this, I was actually with a distributor of other products used in video and film, SAN products and storage hardware vendors we've represented. We also represented Arcuware. So I've been working with them for a long time. We also had some archive appliances and things like that. So I've had a lot of experience in the backup and archive section.
And based up in Michigan, the great state, pure Michigan. Were you involved in any of those, the filming of any of those TV commercials? We see them all the time here in California.
Not yet.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Business class data protection, there's a lot of choices. And this is, I think, one of the hardest things. People don't know where to start because there's too many things to choose. So why don't we start by breaking down the mystery around whether something should be automatic or whether it should be scheduled and how often you should back up. People think you should be continuously backing up. Some people say that you back up once a day. What are people thinking about these days using modern tools?
Well, it really depends on your data set and the type of things that you're trying to save and how long you want that protection for. But all backups should be automatic. You should have, for instance, if you have the ability to back up, let's say you want all of your data to be available to you for the last month. Maybe it would be a good idea to back up full backups once a week and do incrementals every day during the week so that you can go back at any point within the last month and restore any file at any point within the last 4 weeks. That's, when one person's a plan. It's going to depend on the size of the data, too. I mean, if you've got really, really large files, if you got a 400 terabyte, SAN, for instance, maybe once a week is doesn't make sense because it would take too long. But some people back up every day. It really matters on your situation.
Well, a lot of that depends, though, Derek, on what stage the data is in. For example, we have a lot of customers at Drobo who have hundreds of terabytes, but they may not be actively working on that, and that media might be final production stuff. So there's no need to continue to incrementally back it up. Or if you incrementally back it up, meaning the changes that have happened since the last backup, there wouldn't be anything to record. So in this case, maybe you could talk a little bit between full and incremental and how that fits at the different stages of your life cycle for creating media.
Sure. Is full and incremental, well, first what you mentioned, some things are finished, and those would be archived. And we'll get into that, I think, a little bit later. But full backups is protecting everything. So if you did have a large data set, like your customers just said, hundreds of terabytes, and that would take days to do one backup. So maybe you have to do one full backup so everything is protected. And then their incrementals, what they do is they only write the changes. So anything that's changed from the previous incremental will be written down. And that's much quicker, much easier because the amount of data changing daily is nowhere near hundreds of terabytes. So you need a combination of both fulls and separates. And actually, our software actually allows you to do incrementals and synthetically build fulls. So there's a lot of different options there, but they're both very important.
Well, in terms of where to store things, I know that Drobo is a storage company. We make technology that works like RAID so that you can tolerate a hard drive failure. A lot of folks think that's the only data protection they need. There's no doubt about it. It's very important to have that because hard drives do fail. But maybe you can talk a little bit about why backup and archiving are important, because it's not just hardware failing. There's things that I'm sure your customers have told you have happened before they started using your software. Files getting corrupted, someone making a change and destroying some data, losing some data that they unintentionally didn't mean to. Therefore, they need to go back and get a previous copy. There's more than just a hardware failing that would lead to the need to do a restore, right?
Right. I mean, first off, backup's super important. 85% of companies with major data loss filed bankruptcy within the following 2 years, according to a Forbes thing. So obviously, your data is very important. So RAID is super important, especially Drobo's RAID, which is really impressive. It's different than your typical one. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't protect you, like you said, malware, viruses, fire, water. Accidental delete is the most common. Yep. It doesn't have file versions. So it's those things are all not protected there. So that's where you go on to on-site and off-site. You can go with a good backup plan. You can protect against malware, viruses, and accidental deletes. But then if there's a fire or a flood, you can still lose all of your data. Or the cleaning lady spills her coffee on your Drobo. You never know. So it's good to have another off-site sync to another Drobo off-site, or maybe it's a tape.
Well, we're almost coffee-proof. I think our plastic front bezel will keep the liquid out of the hard drive area. But most certainly there are things that can happen there. And you talked about where to store things. During this presentation, we'll talk about the different architectures and where you might store your retention, where your fulls and incrementals go so that you can recover quickly, and archive. A lot of folks are going to the concept of an online archive on site so they can get at that stuff very, very quickly. It doesn't need to be as high performance or highly redundant as your primary set or your first copy, but the whole idea of 3-2-1 of lifecycle management, 3 copies of anything you want to keep on 2 different devices, one of those offsite, certainly applies. So we'll talk about some of the finer points of how to at least do the first couple of steps here. From a small, medium business, or especially creative businesses, which aren't chocked full of IT people, folks probably tell you that what they're looking for is minimal effort, easy to use, and cross-platform support. But talk about cross-platform and licensing, because that stuff can get confusing pretty quick.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, not only is our software very easy to use, like you said, it's cross-platform. Meaning we can do a backup on a Windows machine and go to a Mac and restore that Windows data to a Linux from the Mac without losing file permissions or extended attributes, or we save resource forks, everything. And that's really important for small business owners. They're not IT guys, and they don't want to handle not only the backup plans, but they don't want to handle all the restores for their employees either. So it's important to have something that's really easy, that the users can do their own restores if needed, and also they don't have to worry about which platform it's on. And it's also important to have, which you have on the slide here, the flexible licensing. Backup is not a one-size-fits-all, so you definitely need someone that can flexibly price exactly what you need and not sell you a bunch of extra stuff. Right.
Now, how about the scenario, Derek, where let's say you have a video editor that's been working on a Windows platform, and let's say they're using Adobe Premiere, very similar to what someone on a Mac might use. Are you saying that there are software solutions that would allow you to protect the work done by someone on a Windows system, but then you could either migrate or recover that to a Mac system and keep on trucking without a whole lot of complexity?
Absolutely. Using our backup product, going from one OS to another, we save everything. Like I said, the extended attributes, any sort of file attributes that are necessary for one operating system to another, we save all of that. And you can then restore it between operating systems.
That's cool. Well, hey, let's talk about different approaches for different types of data. I think that from an IT perspective, there's always a lot of doom and gloom and fear marketing about how fast you can get something back. And in the small, medium space or creative media space, that while it may not be online transactions of a stock exchange, still how long it takes you to get something is productivity time and your customer satisfaction time in a lot of cases. We have a lot of customers at Drobo who love keeping everything in an online archive because they're very quickly able to pull up those past projects, do editing and work on them, which saves them a bunch of time and increases customer satisfaction. You talk about archiving, we've got backup, we've got replication, kind of in a continuum of it taking potentially the better part of a day, if not multiple days. You have to go off site and grab your tapes or your restore from an offsite location. That can take a long time, whereas with replication, your failover is measured minutes. It's very quick. Backup's kind of in the middle. Talk to us a little bit about how people are using those and how they should think about using those, because they're probably using a combination of all three for different data at different parts of the life cycle.
And that's exactly it. You have to ask yourself, when you're trying to figure out what do I need, you have to say, how long can I be without my data? And, we have products that are instant mirroring. There's no restore needed. That's the replication. They've got the file versions and snapshots of the file system. You've got the backup, which is, to give a great example, let's say we've got the Daily Show, and they've got a large SAN. They can't restore a 60 terabyte SAN. Take 3 days. They need it's a daily show, right? So they need that instantly available. But then if they're working on a project, let's say I'm talking about Obama or something is due next week, they want to protect that and be able to restore it at any point. That's good for backup. And then after that airs, they're done with it. And what are they going to do with that after? They're not going to throw it away. So the idea would be to archive it to somewhere where they can find it easily and access it quickly. So a nearline archive onto it, like a Drobo, like you're saying, is perfect for that. And for people to really conceptualize the difference between backup and archive, let me just give this quick analogy. It's just to help you conceptualize. Think of the replication as like a semi-truck and its tires. You've got all these tires, and if one tire blows, it doesn't even have to stop. It's got other tires right next to it that keeps on going. And that's the idea of replication. Backup is like us. We have a spare tire in our trunk. And if we don't know which tire is going to blow, but one of them might, so we protect them all by having this tire. And then if it blows, we change it. Archive is like having winter tires in the garage. You know where they're at, you know how to get to them, but you don't need immediate access to them. And that's why you don't need just one of these. Sometimes you need both. Sometimes you need all three. And it really depends on the type of data you're working with.
Well, here in California, we don't have a lot of winter tires here close to the coast, but up in the mountains, you might have some winter tires there. I love the analogy, and we often use the concept of recovery as a spare tire because you can get back up and running pretty quickly. You may not be fully restored in a lot of cases, but in this case, you at least get back up and running in the event of a major disaster like a fire, flood, theft, or something like that. But I know for a lot of folks that are doing life cycle management, we'll talk about some asset management frameworks a little bit later and how to deal with those. They've got certain assets at certain points in their timeline. There's no doubt about it. You want to keep the stuff you're working on RAID protected storage. As you back up, you might want to put that on RAID protected storage as well, only because having a centralized spot, as we go to the next slide and talk about the basic architecture, having on-site storage for your backup and archive really helps you get the stuff in order. Knowing where it is has a lot to do with how fast you can respond to recovery. And that can be a location for everywhere. Now, computers and network, hey, they're likely already in place, whether laptops, workstations, servers. A lot of the confusion around backup has to do with the fact there's too many tools there. So talk about a backup software that supports the choice for the data that you have, because you may need to do all of these things, but not necessarily on all the computers all the time. Talk about where software plays in a mixed environment with laptops, workstations, and servers.
Okay, well, with our software, especially with Synchronized, you can have your main file server be, let's say, synced real time over to another Drobo, maybe on-site or even off-site. And then we have another product called Backup to Go. Backup to Go handles all the workstations that are on, they're off, they're in the office, they're out of the office, they're salesmen, laptops, they're anyone that's working on things. They're not servers. That data can be protected automatically without scheduling, without having static IPs. They can have dynamic IPs. It doesn't matter when they're on or off. And it gives the admin a lot of power on what they can back up and what they can restore. But then we also have another part of the software, our backup and archive, which is for the servers. And the servers can now be backed up and be safe, or they can also do archive finished projects to that same storage pool. So they're all important in their own way. They all blend well together. And it's good to have them all in the same interface as well.
Right. Now, the diagram we're showing here for the basic architecture doesn't have the offsite component, but with any solution that writes to network storage, if you've got the ability to write across a network, that network could conceivably have more than one location. And you mentioned with your products, Derek, you can have an offsite location there managed all the same. The reason why you want management software here, though, is that you could go, conceivably to each one of the devices, and there's built-in software in all the different computers, right? You don't have to buy backup software. Now, I personally believe you do because I really value the idea of centralized management. But for folks out there who think they can get along with just using the individual OS and the backup facilities built in, what are some of the reasons why they'd want to look at a backup solution that offers centralized management?
Well, it's the nice thing is to have the ability to look up any file and anything and have an index of everything that's been backed up is very powerful. To be able to say, and to also have the powers of saying, I want to throttle certain the bandwidth or CPU usage of certain machines, or I only want to back up these. I want to put a file filter. I don't want to back up everybody's MP3s, for instance. And to be able to manage all this and save as storage or have the ability to use hard linking, which is basically a form of deduplication that doesn't waste your storage for multiple cycles of backup. So there's a lot of extra things that can save you money because you're not continually buying more storage. And then to also just be able to go to any machine anywhere or any unit. Actually, if you use an iPad or an Android tablet with ours because it's browser-based, you can just access anywhere, log in, and restore any file to any computer on the network from anywhere, regardless of OS. So I mean, it's super easy, and it just seems like a lot of people would welcome that into their workflow.
Well, thanks for sharing that, because I think these are some of the decisions that people are faced with, whether they continue maybe doing it the way they have. Odds are there's a lot of folks out there that aren't doing anything for some of their systems, so that's right. Something they need to look at. Hey, why don't they do things? Because it's complex. What do they really need to make sure they optimize for is recoverability. And everybody says this, your backup's only as good as what you're able to recover. By standardizing on some tools that have options built in, kind of like Prestore, I think that's one way to address those concerns. Browser-based tools for simplicity are cool. Talk about that and the power it provides then the user. You don't need an IT person or someone to manage a restore. You don't have to submit a trouble ticket per se. With a browser-based system, the user themselves has more flexibility to recover some files or go back and look at different versions, don't they?
Well, the nice thing is you can go to a machine that's the Presstore's not on. So like I said, your iPhone or an Android tablet, if it's got a browser and you're on the network, you can log in to Prestore server that's on the network. So the beauty of that is you don't have every machine in those. Even if new people walk in, they can access it if you have the admin password. So that's one nice thing about the browser-based. The other nice thing is because it's browser-based, the GUI, the graphical in the interface looks the same. If you're on a Mac and you learned it, and then you go on to Windows, it looks exactly the same, and on Linux. So you don't have to keep learning it like other softwares. So that's also really nice. Not to mention, that allows us to be really lightweight. You can install the software within a few minutes. You can actually set up your first backup plan in a few minutes. So literally, within the first 10 minutes of downloading your software, you can have your plan set up and ready to go. It's that easy because of that interface.
And we get a lot of questions here, Derek, about finding a business-grade solution that works across multiple platforms. Most of the IT-oriented applications are into server virtualization these days. They certainly work in the Windows world, but not often do you find something that's business-grade and backs up Mac and Windows and Linux all the same. So that's why I'm glad we have a tested solution here with Prestore and ArchiWare and Drobo. The reason why the solution was put together is that disk-based backup storage allows for this consolidated area to do your backups and even archive online nearline for an affordable price and expand as the data grows. So for folks that know Drobo, it's as easy as following traffic signals. You pop in any hard drive of any, as long as it's SATA, into a 3.5-inch slot, no drive carriers required, will automatically expand. In the case of our 8-bay products, the 12-bay supports SAS and SSD as well. So you can address a lot of the concerns around complexity and recoverability with the joint solution. You talked about how easy it is to set up a backup set. I think a lot of folks have seen wizards that do backup pretty easily. In your case, though, with Prestore, you can do synchronization or replication about as easy with a wizard as we're showing here the screenshot for. This is not usually the case. People think of replication as IT consulting in a week on site. This is something that's fairly straightforward.
Yeah, in fact, it's a lot of larger companies that use them. Those are original fears. They're like, this looks too easy. I don't think it can do what we want it to. And we look into it, it can. But when you look at this, the screenshot here, it's setting up a sync plan. It's basically you pick a source or multiple sources, you pick a destination, you pick full syncs or incrementals and the times when they run. If you can obviously see just new, you can set up a new schedule. It's really simple to follow. And there's no restore needed on the sync. And that's why it's great for the disk to disk. and with the Drobo, adding whatever size drive and whatever brand, I mean, that's really cool. I mean, you guys will love this for the Synchronized, for the growing data sets, and really love that for archive as well, because archive will always continually grow. So.
Yep, you could build a 16 terabyte volume on our iSCSI product, or even our file sharing product as well. We'll give you the details on which work with which here as we put the solution together toward the end. But generally speaking, Drobos, using your transportation analogy, look in the rear of the truck, the window, or the mirror that is, and you'll see that objects in the mirror are much smaller than they actually appear. You can see a 16 terabyte volume with a Drobo would have just a small number of drives. Add the drives in over time to grow out the back end. Your presentation never changes. So you as the user really do have a simple way to get it installed. Now, while it may not seem simple, asset management applications that a lot of media creators and other folks that are dealing with a lot of assets, media and such, they have these tools. And with Prestore, you can use that as an asset manager. You talked about having a full index of everything. You can go find things and keep them organized that way. But for folks that already have another asset manager, they can fairly easily integrate that with integrate Prestore, that is, into that environment, can't they?
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. Our Prestore archive allows you to add your own custom metadata. It allows you to create low-res proxies of your data while it's offline. So now you can search through everything and find everything offline easily. But for the people that do have an asset manager that's a little stronger and more robust, like Final Cut Server or CatDV or some of the things you pointed out here, we have plugins built in for this. We kind of left the back door open so anything can be tied into us. And so we've got some great third-party plugins that allow us to tie into these asset managers so that you don't even have to use Prestore. It's doing all the work behind the scenes, but you're just using CatDV, for instance, and you're just pulling down the archive tab and it archives stuff for you and restores for you. So there's stuff out there. And if you have an asset manager that, we haven't seen, it's really easy. It's one of the easier products to tie into new asset managers because we have such a great API. And it's just pre or post scripts, basically. And without getting too technical, it can be done most likely.
Well, odds are, if someone has one of these larger asset management systems, they probably have a more complex environment. These are the types of things, though, that resellers can help folks out with, and by virtue of the types of products that are here, they tend to be more media broadcast oriented and no IT person required. I think that's one of the reasons why people love Drobo. No IT person required, and it fits well here. So other comments then as we go to putting it together, there are some choices on software. With Prestore, and it's version 4, P4, sometimes you see it as abbreviated, all the products have a common software, and it's whether or not you license those features that you take advantage of that. That makes it a lot easier to purchase, right? Because you just license the features that you want to take advantage of, but from a software distribution standpoint, it's one thing.
Right. As you can see in the top right corner here, there's 4 parts to it. There's backup, sync, backup to go, and archive. And you can blend 2 of these, or 3 of these, or 4 of these, or 1 of these together, however you need them. And that goes back to how long can you be without your data. We kind of protect the data through the entire cycle, from creation to use to reuse. And we often do different products for that. So, yeah, you can play with them all with the trial, but whatever you like, you just license. And all of them are installed, as you said, because it's such a lightweight software. All of them are installed on every installation. It's just you have to license and unlock which ones you want to use, basically.
In terms of selecting what type of storage you might want to use for that, backup or archiving works great on Drobo's file sharing device. Our B800FS, it looks like a CIFS file share. It works great for people who want to do Time Machine, but I like your backup to go because it's kind of like Time Machine on steroids, isn't it, in the way that it operates.
It's very affordable also.
Great. So that's something that you can complement your environment with there to a B800FS. If you want to buy our iSCSI storage, it might sound complicated for folks who aren't into IT, but Drobo makes using iSCSI storage as easy as putting a tick in a checkbox in our management interface that will automatically do the iSCSI configuration for you, giving you thinly provisioned volumes up to 16 terabytes each, regardless of what your backend storage is, and that will support you for backup and archiving, as well as that sync or replication solution that we talked about for servers especially, but even some workstations, you might want to have that because you don't want to be without your data, as you mentioned, for more than a couple minutes in the event there is something that goes wrong. So when it comes to choosing drives, Drobo gives you the flexibility to choose any drives that you want. We do recommend enterprise-grade drives because of the rigors that you're likely to put this system under in a real business-oriented scenario. We have some customers who can use desktop-grade drives, and they are satisfied by those, but certainly the little extra money you can pay to get the enterprise or server-grade drives will definitely pay for itself in the long run because you want to make sure that you're not swapping out drives unnecessarily over time because they're failing on you. So
you get what you pay for.
Yeah, you get what you pay for. And the thing is, Drobo will protect you from hard drive failures. You're not going to lose access to the data, but you'll be shuffling around disks as you try to repair any broken ones. So that brings us down to the conclusion. We have a couple of questions here, but also some questions that we want to take online. Before we get into those, Derek, how about you just talk about tape? Does that continue to play a role? People think, yeah, Drobo, they hate tape. It's all about disk. I could tell you that tape has historically been a great medium. It's only because now disk can be as affordable for the capacities you need that we're even using disks to get the advantages of the random access restore and having a better performance there. Tape does continue to play a role. How do you see that, Derek?
Yeah, tape still plays a huge role in that it's really easy for the offsite. I mean, you can do backups when you take your tapes offsite, and they have a shelf life of 30 years, so you don't have to worry about that. Some people also like tape because it's energy saving because it's not spinning. But I see it working best with disk and together. So you do a disk-to-disk using our Sync product. Now you've got your replication and you're super safe, and then you do a backup of that secondary disk to tape and take that off-site. Now you're protected against fire, floods, and tornadoes and whatnot. So tape does play a huge role. And with archive, I love having the nearline archive with the Drobo. I love having the ability to bring it back right away. But sometimes if that's filling up, I mean, if you archive to a tape, you can put that on a shelf somewhere. Our software allows you to look through the files and even scrub through the videos or whatever the clips are, even though they're offline on a tape, because those clips will be held on the Drobo. So it definitely still plays a big role today. Although, you know, it's a slower restore process. So if you know, you've got the Drobo, the nearline stuff, and that's going to be also.
Yeah, well, that's for the projects you're working on. For the stuff that is final production that you don't anticipate changing, it certainly makes sense to utilize the archive there on tape. A question from online, Derek, about full backups weekly and incremental backups done daily.
Mm-hmm.
Why the full backups weekly instead of simply incrementals each time you do the initial backups? Why kind of like a full backup and then an incremental forever? A lot of software vendors talk about that as a solution. Do you guys, I assume, support the very same thing? Is there a best practice around doing those weekly fulls because you want to have a better restore point?
I was just giving that example of weeklies. You can do a longer. Basically, the idea is that whatever you do in your full, whatever files, sometimes in projects, files build upon other files. So if you have a file that hasn't changed, that's part of the project, that's in the original full, and you do incremental to say for 2 months, right? So, and then you're saying, I have to restore this project. Well, that means you have to load, if you're using tape, you'd have to load everything, all those incremental tapes, and reload all that data all the way back and then to the full. You'd have to rebuild it. If you had a full, just restore right off the one set of tapes. So it could take a long process. With using a virtual tape library on disk, which is how you'd use backup with Drobo, that wouldn't really be a problem. So you just use incrementals, that'd be fine. And our software will actually synthetically build a full out of those incrementals. So you could just run incrementals if you're doing backup to a Drobo, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate the question online because that really helps encapsulate what is it that people should look for in a backup solution by using disk as your retention on site and your primary online archive for the office. You get the advantage of being able to do incremental forever, and you don't pay a penalty of having to load tapes there. But you mentioned, Derek, that you do have the capability to batch up a lot of incrementals to make a full. Is that correct?
Yes, and it's based on the idea of tape. We're using virtual tapes on disk, obviously, but the idea is it's an intelligent recycling design. Before it recycles a tape for reuse, it'll say, is there any data needed from this tape to do a full restore? If so, then move it to another tape. Well, when that's on disk, that happens instantly. There's no robot changing stuff around. So with our synthetic on disk, it'd be really fast and instant. So it's almost like our backup
that's super. No, I love the fact that it's also cross-platform, browser-based, a lot of other cool features that Prestore has. Last one that I'll have for you is, when do you choose sync over backup alone? Are there cases where people will just say, you know what, my working copy is RAID protected, I'm syncing over to the other site? Your sync provides file level versioning. So do you need a backup if you have that robust file level versioning in the replication?
Well, most cases, if you're going just disk to disk and you just need one or the other, you'll go sync. Because why have a restore? Just have a replication, absolutely. If you're going cross-platform, though, from one platform to another, like you said with Premiere, and you're using sync, it's file level, it'll sync everything over, but some things could be lost in the translation from one operating system to another if it can't be written to that file system. So that's why backup is important, because backup doesn't lose anything. Another important way to look at it is, let's say you have 30 servers and you're syncing them all to one central storage disk, and then someone says, hey, I lost my project. You have to go to each server or try to find it yourself, because sync is just a copy. So you have to go find it using the operating system to find it. With backup, you could say, oh, what's the file name? And you could type it into ArchiWare, to Prestore, and find that file and say, okay, where do you want it? And then restore it to where you want. So backup gives you more, functionality as far as like finding and restoring and sending things to places, where sync is just a mirror. It's just copying. But sync does have file revisioning, and it does do snapshotting, just like backup would need. So if you are using the Synchronized, it does replace backup fully from disk to disk in a lot of cases.
In the case of ArchiWare, though, you can license both of them and use both. If you're looking for a great place to store all of that data, I'd say a Drobo is a fantastic place to put it, with the low cost per capacity and the ability to scale it indefinitely by either adding larger drives to include support for 4 terabyte drives today, and or replacing smaller drives with larger ones. So that's really great stuff. And we appreciate you taking some time, Derek, to walk through some of the stuff. The listeners really love getting that advice. The key takeaways, folks: when you create a data protection strategy, not the easiest thing to do. Continually executing, it's even harder, especially if you're trying to use the wrong tools. Not to say that you can't be successful using the tools built into the computers that you already have, but a higher order software application like Prestore can really help you out and more than pay for itself by way of the efficiencies that you gain and the protection and the speed in which you can recover things. There are different types of data, and they require different types of data protection. So having a product that includes sync, backup, and archiving all in one is a great way to go about it, which is why Prestore, as a common software tool, and Drobo as that easy-to-use back-end storage, make for a great solution. It's not just for creative professionals, but also small and medium business who can benefit from all these very same things. So with that, I want to thank you for participating. If you want more information, go to drobo.com/ArchiWare to get a solution summary, as well as later today a recording of this session that we've just done. If folks want to try Prestore, Derek, you've got a 30-day free trial that not only allows them to trial it, it's all the modules and unlimited clients, so they really can get a true experience before they buy it, correct?
Absolutely. It's got everything that you could possibly purchase. It's unlimited clients, unlimited data usage, all the modules. You can test everything, play with it for 30 days. If you need more time, you can actually download it again. We'll allow you to do a second 30-day trial to make sure that you've got it working the way you like. And if you like it and you want to purchase it, you'll purchase it, but just plug in a number, and it'll just keep working. You don't have to reset it up. What you download for the trial is the full version. So it's all just done by licensing and keys.
I can tell you, as an IT guy, I hate it when you have to uninstall the trial software and reinstall the other stuff. That's fantastic. Another thing that shows you that you guys are thinking about the customer. You're thinking about making it as elegant and easy as possible. So for folks who want to try out that 30-day trial, you can go to archiware.com/download.14.1.html and get that code for your environment. So with that, I want to thank everybody for participating. And thanks a lot, Derek. Thanks for spending some time with us and talking about protecting your data.
Hey, no problem. It's my pleasure. I love talking about backup, and my friends and girlfriends think it's boring. So.
Hey, I think we all resemble that remark, but it's super important. And thanks everybody for tuning into this episode of the Drobo Broadcast Network, where we bring you interesting topics of data protection, virtualization, and media creation that are easy and made for everybody. Tune in next time as we discuss even more topics like this, and thanks again for joining.